Adonai Mitchell is the other Texas wide receiver that could potentially find himself on the Indianapolis Colts next fall. So, how interested are the Colts in Mitchell? And will the Colts end up drafting him at the end of the month? Let's talk about it. Welcome to the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast presented by Fan Nation on SI.com, part of the Fans First Sports Network. My name is Andrew Moore, and as always, I'm joined here by my fellow analyst and co-host of the Horseshoe Huddle Podcast, Drake Wally. Drake, we already talked about Xavier Worthy and went in depth about how the Colts are really interested in adding Worthy to this team. But hey, Adonai Mitchell is that other Texas wide receiver who had a pretty good 2023 and has some enticing traits that might make the Colts coaching staff and Chris Ballard in that front office take a second look, and possibly he ends up in Indy.
Yeah, and kind of he's explosive in his own right. Obviously he started with Georgia, then he goes over to Texas, erupts in 2023, has big playability. He's a long, lanky type of guy who kind of different from Worthy is more of a contested catch guy. He's a great route runner. We're going to get into all the ways he could fit Indianapolis. But rest assured, it wasn't just Xavier Worthy that Shane Steichen, Jim Bob Cooter and Reggie Wayne were watching. They were definitely watching A.D. Mitchell too at that pro day. So I'm excited to talk about this guy. I think that he kind of gets buried underneath some of the other receiving prospects. But hey, he could realistically still be an Indianapolis Colt at the end of the day.
Yeah, I think that statement is very true. Obviously you've got the big three with Harrison, Neighbors, and Adonai. Then you got Brian Thomas Jr. there as kind of that number 4 wide receiver. But then in that next tier, there's a lot of Xavier Worthies, the Troy Franklin, Adonai Mitchell. If you keep going, you could get some guys like Keon Coleman, Ladd McConkey. Those are kind of where all these guys kind of sit. But Adonai Mitchell brings a lot of interesting qualities to the wide receiver position that I think would fit well with the Indianapolis Colts. Obviously, we're going to dive into all of that tonight. We've got B-Ball in the chat. What's good, fellas? Good to see you. We've got Yim with our first super chat of the evening. Yim, thank you so much for all of the support, brother. We really do appreciate it. And Yim says it's officially draft month. Thanks as always. Well, hey, thanks to you for getting us off to a hot start with that super chat. It is draft month, 24 days after today. So 25 days from today, I guess I should say, until the first round of the NFL draft kicks off. So we're going to have a lot of NFL draft coverage leading up to that day. Sean Contright, hey guys, and we've got David in the chat. Yes, sir. Can't wait. Best Indy Colts show on YouTube. Drake, keep drinking out of our favorite cup, especially during the draft. Let's go Colts. Well, hey David, we appreciate all of your support. It's fantastic there. And Colts House kids, get your cameras. It's Drake Wally. Drake is an absolute superstar here amongst the people. We absolutely love to see it. So as you guys are rolling in, please make sure to go follow us on all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts on FN on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know whenever the superstar and handsome man himself, Drake Wally, and I go live on YouTube here, so you never miss us and a chance to engage. And
I think that's what handsome people do, right?
I guess so. I wouldn't know. And if you can't catch us live or on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, Google, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're on there as well. So make sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review so we can reach other Colts fans just like you. And then, guys, 1 week from today is when we have the release of the Indy Draft Guide. So make sure to hit the link in our description. Use the code DRAFTMAS for $1 off. You get over 225 prospect write-ups, their player comps, fits with the Colts, multiple features that Zach Hicks, myself, are putting in there. You're not going to want to miss out on this. This is what Drake and I are going to be using all draft season long. Again, code DRAFTMAS gets you $1 off, 10% off. It's only $8.99. So hey, get that deal and make sure you get your copies just in time for draft season. So Drake, let's dive right into it. So Adonai Mitchell, could he be a sneaky draft target for the Indianapolis Colts? He certainly fits a lot of what the Colts are looking for. That deep threat that he provided for Texas, made a lot of big catches, especially in that final game against the Washington Huskies, where Texas came up just a little bit short of going to the college football championship. scholarship. He started out with a Georgia, transferred to Texas, so he's definitely gone up against higher competition throughout his college career, Drake. And he certainly maybe he hasn't shown the production that some of the other wide receivers have, but he's certainly gone out there and made plays at the highest level of college football.
Well, and that's what's important is, I know that nowadays a lot of these players, you just see more transfers than you've ever seen. And that's just how it's going to be. Starting your career out at Georgia, though, and being buried just behind so much competition to go to Texas, which is equally as prolific in many regards. I know that it's obviously not the Vince Young era anymore, and Georgia's really taken over as one of the premier dominant, programs. But Texas is no slouch. I mean, they were fighting against Michael Penix Jr. There in both Worthy and Mitchell's last game. But like you said, it's interesting because once he got that move finished, he flourished in Texas's offense. He was a big play receiver. I think that for his most of his numbers came from last season. But you're talking about 55 catches, 845 yards. The guy was just a big play machine, and he averaged over 15 yards per clip, which is awesome. That means that you've got that ability to create separation. I know if you watch his highlight films, it's 50-50 balls all day, great route running, and just incredible separation. When he catches that ball, people are 5 yards behind him, so there's a lot to love here. I know that Xavier Worthy gets all that attention because the 40 time, and he broke the record for it, guys. It's really not as important as you would think. The 40 time it's a glamour stat. Okay, you really want to look at like more of the drills and how fast were they moving, at the point of breaks and stuff. And I think that AD Mitchell fits everything that Shane Steichen wants to do. But it's really enticing to think about him in that offense because undoubtedly, like we said at the beginning of this episode, Andrew, they still had eyes on him at that Texas Pro Day. They wouldn't have sent all those people if they weren't also going to look into AD Mitchell as well.
I want to give a shout out to the GOAT Logan Schmidt for his super chat. Unfortunately, it's a little bit of a somber super chat. We're definitely going to talk about this later in the show, but rest in peace to Vontae Davis. If you haven't heard, earlier this morning, Vontae Davis, former cornerback for the Indianapolis Colts, former Pro Bowl cornerback of the Indianapolis Colts, was found dead in his grandmother's house. I think it was in South Florida. There is still an investigation going on, but Vontae Davis was only 35 years old, and I mean, a lot of Colts fans remember but he was probably one of the best cornerbacks that the Indianapolis Colts have ever had.
Exactly.
Definitely put together one of the best seasons that the Indianapolis at the cornerback position for the Indianapolis Colts. So, I definitely want to take some time at the end of the show because I want to talk about Vontae Davis, and I think we should, talk about some memories because I know it's impacting a lot of Colts that maybe used to be on the team that are in those 2010 era, but there were some Colts on the team currently that were teammates with Vontae Davis, such as like Ryan Kelly, Kenny Moore, some of those guys that go way back. So definitely want to give Vontae Davis his props and talk about him. But Logan, thank you so much for your super chat, buddy. Really appreciate it. And yes, very very sad situation there, and we definitely want to remember and keep Vontae Davis's family in our thoughts and prayers as we move forward here. So. But Drake, let's kind of turn our attention back to Adonai Mitchell here, and first, like we did with Brian Thomas Jr., guys, I want to bring up his RAS score and his RAS card just to kind of show some of the athletic traits we're talking about here with Adonai Mitchell. Obviously, look at that RAS score, Drake, 9.99. Excuse me, the highest you can get for a RAS is 10.0. That's what Anthony Richardson has. It's the highest you can possibly get. 9.99 is one of the highest RAS in history since the database was created. So you look just over 6'2", 205 pounds, but the explosive scores, look at that, 11-foot 4-inch broad jump is insane. One of the highest broad jumps at the NFL Combine, 39.5-inch vertical, skyrocketing. And then you go to the 40-yard dash, 4.3440, that 10-yard split, 1.48 seconds. So Adonai Mitchell absolutely crushed the NFL Combine, Drake. And when you look at these these grades and these scores that tabulated up, I mean, of course you're going to think this is music to the Colts' ears, and it definitely is, because the Colts want to bet on those athletes with high end traits, and to go out there and crush the NFL Combine like Adonai Mitchell did. I mean, one of the most athletic wide receiver prospect in terms of RAS in NFL history.
Well, and you you look at all those numbers and they really pop. And when you watch his tape, you just see an athletic freak. And I know that he's on the same team as Xavier Worthy. The difference here is that, I mean, yes, Xavier Worthy has got incredible speed, but just because Xavier Worthy ran a 4.21 40-yard dash, and a guy like, because then you look at 4.34 and you start to think, well, wow, that's not anywhere near as fast as Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy's like 5'10". Adonai Mitchell's about 6'3", and he's 200 plus pounds. I mean, the guy is just huge for a guy that can move at a 4.34 type 40-yard dash, and he has that kind of get up and go at 10-yard split of 1.48. That's absolutely fantastic. And so that means you can catch that ball, you can get up and go, you can get moving quickly. You need explosiveness. Yeah, and this adds even a bigger 50-50 type of contested catch, skill set, I guess, if you want to put it that way, to what he can do. So there's so much to love here. And when you look at these athletic numbers, of course, if you're Chris Ballard, who, as we've said, sometimes marries the RAS method a little too much in the draft. But I will say that there's no way that he saw this and didn't go, okay, we got to send some people there, a la that's why Shane Steichen, Reggie Wayne, and JBC all showed up at the Texas Pro Day, not just for Worthy, but to check out A.D. Mitchell as well. Look at those numbers. How can you ignore that?
And of course, the Colts do use their own grading system to grade out these athletes. But when you look at those numbers and combine it with his height and weight, and just combining with the explosiveness that he posted, it's gonna, whatever system you use, doesn't matter if it is RAS or if it is what the Colts and the NFL teams use. That each one differs probably a little bit, but depending on the team, but it's still gonna grade out very highly. And Adonai Mitchell definitely grades out as a very high level athlete. So right there, he already checks a box for the Indianapolis Colts. Let's dive into some of his production, Drake. Last season at Texas, remember, he started out at Georgia, played his first 2 seasons at Georgia, and then transferred to Texas. 55 catches for 845 yards and 11 touchdowns, led Texas last season with 11 touchdowns, more than Xavier Worthy. Xavier Worthy, I think, only had 5 touchdowns last season, but Xavier Worthy led the team in catches and yards. So that's kind of the difference there between the 2 wide receivers. And then for his career, 3 seasons, like I said, 2 at Georgia, 1 at Texas, 93 catches, 1,405 yards, and 18 touchdowns in 3 seasons. And that equates to about, I think he played in his college career, 35 games. So he averaged about a touchdown every 2 games or so, is what that comes out to. So yeah, I mean, definitely the production, when you look at his stats, it jumped at Texas in that final year. But something that I think the Colts, it seems like in the past the Colts have really paid attention to, Drake. They really like the wide receivers that have led their team in production as far as yards are concerned. And unfortunately, Adonai Mitchell never did that. So I don't know how big of a sticking point that is, but that's just a trend that has been identified, is when the Colts have been drafting wide receivers, especially under Chris Ballard, they've at least led the team in receiving yards. Adonai Mitchell never did that. So before I go to you, Drake, I want to make sure we give our props here to the CFO, Patrick Rye, the legend that he is. Thank you so much for the $10 super chat, buddy. Really, really appreciate it. Patrick said, didn't you guys mention before that his talents are like a bigger Alec Pierce? Don't you think the team wants a guy with a different skill set for utilizing many play and route styles despite the RAS? To me, Adonai Mitchell isn't the same wide receiver as Alec Pierce. I think Adonai Mitchell has a better, a more robust route tree than Alec Pierce. Alec Pierce is more of a like that deep guy. He doesn't have the underneath or the middle stuff. To me, Adonai Mitchell's route running and his ability to run the short to intermediate routes is much better than Alec Pierce. But I also think Alec Pierce is probably a better deep threat than Adonai Mitchell. So I don't think their games are necessarily similar. And Alec Pierce is actually bigger than Adonai Mitchell as well. So when you look at, I think Pierce is 6'3", over 200 pounds, and Mitchell's only 6'2" and around 200 pounds. So, but what do you think about that comparison, Drake, between Adonai Mitchell and Alec Pierce?
I think that you nailed it really right on the head. If you're talking about like the nuanced route running, if you're talking about underneath, production, yeah, short pass catching, I think that that's more of Adonai Mitchell's strong suit. I think if you're talking though, and we'll get into it later, blocking. You're talking about 50-50 ball. Even with the way Mitchell plays, I still think Alec Pierce is a better 50-50 ball guy because, like Andrew said, you look at his target percentage, you look at all that, not the most glamorous, but watch the film. Alec Pierce is actually pretty damn good. If you toss that ball up and he has an equal opportunity as his defender that he's with to catch that ball, he's probably going to come away with it. So I think that he's probably better at that, and he's just more of the true deep threat. He's the true seam runner. He's the true big play guy. I know that he's only got 4 touchdowns, but I think that as far as the big play appeal, Pierce is better for that than what Mitchell is. If you're looking for more all around, well-rounded type of receiver and a route runner underneath guy, volume pass catcher, I think Mitchell's going to fit that.
I would agree. And so, Patrick, thank you so much for the question, buddy. Really do appreciate it. I do see a comment in the chat here from Colts House saying that Mitchell is 6'4". I want to bring up his RAS again. It shows right here, 6'2", and that second 2 is like, it means 2/8 of an inch. So technically he's 6'2" and 1/4 of an inch. So definitely smaller than Alec Pierce in terms
and
of
you'll see like all over the place
weight
stuff. Sometimes you'll see like 6'4", 6'3". It's look at the RAS score or look at his NFL Combine profile because they're incredibly specific. It's 6'2" there.
Yeah, so that's where Mitchell was measured at the combine, so that's a pretty accurate measurement. So a little bit smaller than Alec Pierce is, just even compared to some other wide receivers. So, but Drake, you talked about it before, the interest that the Colts had in Adonai Mitchell. Obviously, we talked about this already with Xavier Worthy, but the Colts did send Shane Steichen, Jim Bob Cooter, and Reggie Wayne to the Texas Pro Day. We think, and I've got some good intel on this, that the Colts have a bigger interest in Xavier Worthy than they do Adonai Mitchell. However, there's still, Adonai Mitchell is still an interest to the Indianapolis Colts, and when you're there taking a look at one of the wide receivers, they're both operating on the same pro day. So obviously you're going to get a good look and you're going to be able to meet with that player as well at that pro day. So the Colts, while they might have been there to see Xavier Worthy, they were also there to see Adonai Mitchell as well. Definitely don't want to confuse people about that. The Colts have had eyes on Adonai Mitchell throughout this draft process.
Yeah, and you're looking at both of those receivers. I mean, they're both explosive in their own right, but in just different ways. Adonai Mitchell is more of, I think you're probably going to get more of a voluminous type of production underneath stuff, route running stuff. Not to say Xavier Worthy can't do that kind of stuff, but he's a burner. He's a guy that's going to take the top off of defense. And you're also talking about 3 inches, 4 inches in difference in height and about potentially 40 pounds in weight. So you've got two different fits for Shane Steichen there, but each have their own intrigue. And that's why I think that the Colts sent such a large and really heavy type of contingent. That's why it's so interesting, is because there's 2 guys there that really could fit Shane Steichen's offense. So that's why they wanted so much there. They wanted to cover both spots, and they wanted the best possible eyes on those guys. But yes, absolutely, they were looking at A.D. Mitchell. A.D. Mitchell, not only did he come out of nowhere in 2023, Andrew, he came out of nowhere in the combine. He did a great job at the pro day. He's shown a lot that people just weren't looking his direction for. Okay, everyone was talking about Xavier Worthy, especially after the 40-yard dash, which everyone just loses their minds over. but I'm telling you, AD Mitchell fits a lot of what the Colts are trying to do. I think that potentially he might be more well-rounded right now in this immediate moment than Xavier Worthy. But yeah, man, I think that there's a lot of intrigue there, especially when you think about Pittman and you think about Pierce and you think about Downs. And then if you put AD Mitchell in that equation, he does a lot of things really well, and he could complement really any one of those guys pretty effectively.
See, while I am high on Adonai Mitchell, I'd have to probably disagree as far as being more well-rounded than Xavier Worthy. I think Xavier Worthy does a lot more than Adonai Mitchell does in terms of after the catch. He can still be that deep threat as far as being able to run different things, stretching the field. His route running, I think, is comparable to Adonai Mitchell. I think Mitchell's probably a better route runner, but there's a lot of different nuances to Xavier Worthy's game, and he's done it for multiple years. He's been Texas's top wide receiver for multiple years. Even last season, Xavier Worthy was the number one wide receiver, and Adonai Mitchell was a solid 2 option, but it was no doubt that Xavier Worthy was that top dog. And this is kind of a good segue into Mitchell's strengths, Drake, because like I mentioned, he's a better route runner than Xavier Worthy. To me, the route running ability of Adonai Mitchell is my favorite thing that I saw out of his film. I was trying to find a comp for his route running, and guys, I'm a sucker for a really good route runner at the wide receiver position. I think it's severely underrated in terms of what a wide receiver can do, because if your ability to run routes, and what I mean is run routes, I mean not just know what your route is, but the different nuances in running the route, not making every single route look the same, or I'm sorry, not making every single route. You're not allowing the cornerback to know what route you're running, so you're making sure that at the start you're probably making sure every route looks the same until the very last second, and then those different ways that you can get open create that separation. That's what I think separates good wide receivers from great wide receivers, is their ability to separate, and the route running capabilities. And some of the routes that I saw AD Mitchell produce in college, especially this last year at Texas, really reminded me of how CeeDee Lamb runs routes. CeeDee Lamb is an elite separator, and I think Adonai Mitchell could potentially get there too as an elite separator at the next level. I didn't want to put that out there lightly, but when I watch how Mitchell runs routes, and then when you turn on the film of CeeDee Lamb, there's a lot of similarities in that. So that really stood out to me, and why I think as far as overall prospect, I think I might be a little bit higher on Mitchell than most. Definitely the home run speed is there, Drake, but it doesn't necessarily show on film, unfortunately.
Yeah.
So you saw it in the 40 time, but as far as being able to see it on film, it didn't always equate. So maybe it's a plus in he showed that he can do it, but it's also maybe a minus or a weakness that it needs to show on film. Catches everything is what I put in my notes here. Has a very low drop percentage. I think he dropped 1 catch all of 2023. Has really, really good hands. Some of the best hands in this class. And with those long arms means his catch radius is one of the biggest in this class as well. And then contested catches. I think he is one of the best contested catch wide receivers in college football last season. And obviously, I think there's going to be a little bit of a transition next year because you're going up against bigger, stronger, more physical corners at the NFL level. But Adonai Mitchell showed me that he could be a contested catch winner at the next level. He did it multiple times at the college level. You look at the game against Washington there at some of the highest levels of college football. Some of his contested catches actually brought Texas back into the game. So those were definitely some of the strengths that stood out to me on tape, and in particular that route running. I'm going to go back to it. Some elite route running by Adonai Mitchell. But Drake, when you were watching the film, kind of tell me what you saw and what really stood out to you.
Well, you really covered it. I mean, an incredible separation. He's got an incredible shake move that seemed to put guys just right on their ass, and then he's just open underneath. I love the fact that and look, we're not bashing the 40 time. It's good to know how fast a guy can get if he's free. Okay. How often that happens in college is kind of rare. How often that happens in the NFL is damn near never. even with this ridiculous hip drop tackle. These are professional athletes. They are going to catch you, and you're not going to have an opportunity to just run away full speed very often. I think a lot of his catches, you see a lot of space between him and the guy, especially if they're deep. I think that's elite separation. I think that it fits his NFL profile here from the combine. Some of the strengths: flashes foot quickness needed to beat NFL press. You see that a lot in his film. He's got 5 yards on the guy. It's not speed. It's his footwork and it's his hands and it's his ability to just shred that press and get a guy behind him and have a guy lose a second. Any professional athlete in the NFL is gonna win as a receiver if they just get a second. Speed shifter inside with a sudden change of direction, ridiculous catch web. He's already using the NFL 2-foot drop near the sidelines. If you watch most of his game tape, he's not putting 1 foot down; he's putting 2 down, and it shows. He's also a great jump ball winner, and he'll fall forward for that positive yards after catch. So all of the positives you see here, and you're going to see this mostly with pass catchers, is pass catching type of stuff, and this is exactly what the Colts need. They need reliability. They need a variety. You can't just be a deep ball guy. We've seen Pierce already struggle with that. Albeit his situation is terrible, you can't always just lean on that going into year 3. So he's more well-rounded than a guy like Alec Pierce, but he might have more underneath prowess than a guy like Michael Pittman, who really wins a lot of his routes and a lot of his catches, which is sheer physicality, and he's even improving his route tree. So it's like, I think that he fits, and these strengths all just scream a guy that Shane Steichen could really integrate into the offense. And look, man, if they picked Adonai Mitchell, I think that it would be at a different position than 15, but I do think that it would still be a stellar fit, if for no other reason than Shane Steichen knows football and offensive football above all.
Well, you're talking also about that Reggie Wayne is going to have the biggest impact
That's fair.
on Adonai Mitchell. Being able to help get him in those spots to succeed. And I do think as part of the route running ability, I mean, you saw Adonai Mitchell really dominate over the middle. Not, I wouldn't say dominate. That's too strong of a word, but really create separation is what I mean over the middle of the field. Was definitely able to win on slant routes, win on in breaking routes, things like that. He wasn't just a guy that ran streaks. He was asked to run multiple routes at Texas. And I think he did a good job at that. It's obviously going to get much tougher at the NFL level, but you can see he knows how to run routes. He knows the nuances to route running. And I definitely think that can translate over to the NFL. And as he gets more comfortable with the NFL game, that's something that could be a strength of his and help him get open and be able to produce at the NFL level. So let's move on to the weaknesses, Drake, of Adonai Mitchell, because there are some that definitely stand out to me on film. First of all, was his lack of yards after catch. It seemed like almost every catch that Mitchell made, he wasn't going very far after that. He was either tackled down, didn't break very many tackles either, just not a yards after catch threat. And I think if the Colts are going to draft a wide receiver in this class, they have to have yards after catch ability, because that's something that this Colts offense desperately missed last season. And I think that opens up with Anthony Richardson at the quarterback position, but you need to make sure that you have a wide receiver like that at your arsenal too. I think Michael Pittman can do that. Michael Pittman has shown to be able to do that in the past. Certainly Josh Downs, but that's where you're talking about the guys like we've talked about previously. Brian Thomas Jr. is a deep threat, but we've also seen where he can take a catch and turn a 7-yard gain into a 17 to 20-yard gain. Brock Bowers, obviously, the yards after catch monster. Xavier Worthy, a guy that really excels with yards after catch. So that's I think is an area that is quite lacking in Mitchell's game, and something that I think would be certainly a knock on him with the Indianapolis Colts. There has been a lot of talk also about Mitchell taking plays off, and I wanted to talk about that because I feel like when that comes up, it really gives players a bad rap. And on film, does he take some plays off? Yes, but I think it's kind of overblown. The play is way far away from him. I've seen Michael Pittman Jr. do that as well, and no one questions Michael Pittman either, nor should they. But does he run routes kind of at half speed when the play isn't coming to him? I have seen that as well. Not all the time, but certainly it's come up. So that's something that if I'm in that if I'm meeting with Adonai Mitchell, if I'm a member of the Colts, you put that on film and you ask, why didn't you finish this play? Why didn't you play through the whistle? Why didn't you run this route 100%? Why this is showing up multiple times on film, and allow him to explain himself in that regard. And then from his answer, then you can kind of assess if that's going to be a major knock on him or not for you. Like I said, it does show up on film here or there. To me, it's probably not that big of a deal, but it's definitely enough of a concern that I would ask him about it in those pre-draft meetings. And then finally, Mitchell disappeared at times. There were some games where he absolutely took over. Drake, he had like 6-7 catches, close to 100 yards, was really leading this Texas offense down the field. Other times he'd have like 2 or 3 targets in a game, and that was it. So there were times, and especially just that he just disappeared. And as a first round wide receiver, that's not something you want to see. If you're thinking about drafting a wide receiver in the first round, you want to make sure it's a guy that was dominant at the college level, because if you're drafting him in the first round, you're expecting him to be big contributors right away. And that was probably one of my biggest knocks on Mitchell, was just he disappeared too often, whether it was he wasn't a big part of the game plan, he wasn't getting open enough. It was definitely concerning to me. And then as far as blocking is concerned, Drake, Mitchell isn't the best blocker. If I'm looking at Brian Thomas Jr. and Adonai Mitchell in terms of their run blocking, taking Brian Thomas Jr. probably 9 times out of 10. And that's definitely a huge trait that's going to separate these wide receivers in the Colts' eyes, because all their wide receivers are required to block. That's why Alec Pierce is still has such a huge role on the team. One of the best run blocking wide receivers, if not the best run blocking wide receiver for the Indianapolis Colts. Shout out to my beautiful wife, Danielle, for the super chat. Thank you so much for your super chat. My 33-week pregnant wife, Danielle, who's chugging along. Baby Jackson's going to be here before we know it, guys. So thank you so much for all of your support. So Drake, what do you think? What were some of the weaknesses that stood out on film to you about Adonai Mitchell?
I want to go with that top flight speed. I think that it's an overmark. I don't think that people should hold him accountable to that 4.3 speed. Like you said, a lot of his catches, even some of the deep ones, overthrows, he's catching them and falling down, or he's not outrunning people, or he's not like catching it underneath and just finding a crease and he's gone. Yes, he averaged over 15 yards a catch. Some of those were freaking bombs, though. I mean, I'm telling you, go back and look at the tape. So I think that the speed can be deceiving. I think that it's a little bit concerning when you read his NFL profile and then you mirror what Andrew just said, right? Intensity can fluctuate from game to game. That translates to just his overall feel and the effort that you feel someone is giving toward a game. And this is just what they saw, during college. Now, is that saying that he's not going to give it everything he's got? No. That's just saying that his intensity isn't always level. Sometimes you get a little bit of a less Adonai Mitchell. Sometimes you get an excited Adonai Mitchell. It just kind of fluctuates. That goes back to those interviews that guys need to nail. You ask him, why do we feel like your intensity fluctuates? Then you gauge based off the answer. You don't gauge based off of what you think. You need to let him answer first. But then doesn't play with aggression or sustained when asked to run block. 2 out of his 5 weaknesses are effort-related weaknesses. That's not good. Regardless of how it really translates to, or if the Colts can fix it, it's not good. That's not something you typically see, basically. So I think that the other things are a little nuanced route running things, like needs to keep him on time. He's a cradle catcher who sometimes fights the ball with his own hands. Those are things that a guy like Reggie Wayne, especially when he's 21 years old. I mean, Adonai Mitchell's young. Okay, he's a young dude. I think you can work a lot of that stuff out, especially the effort stuff. I love what you said about his consistency, though. So 2023 is when he really blew up, right? He has 55 catches on the entire season. So I'm going to give you his top 4 games from the year. We had week 5 against Kansas, 10 catches, 141 yards, and a touchdown. Then he had week 9 against Kansas State, 8 catches, 149 yards, touchdown. Then he had his last 2 games, Oklahoma State and Washington, 6 catches for 109, 4 catches for 32. Both those had a score. So in those 4 games, you had 28 catches. In the remaining 10, you have 27. You have 2.7 per game. We're talking 3 before he hit that 10 mark in week 5. 3 3, 3, 3. Then after that, 3, 1, 3. Then after his 8 catches, 3, 3, 2. Then you get the 6 and 4. Very up and down receiver, not consistent. Look, Xavier Worthy, way more consistent than that. In fact, Xavier Worthy had more catches his rookie season as a freshman than Adonai Mitchell had last season in his breakout year. Okay,
Right.
I'm saying that Mitchell can give you the highest of highs, but he can also just completely not be available in the game. And that's going to be bigger than the blocking that isn't working out. They can work out effort. You can't work out inconsistency.
Yeah, and that's why some of those concerns, and that's why I made that as concerns, he disappears at times because, like you said, half of his production came in 4 games last season,
Out of 14.
and at 14. And that's just not typically what the Colts look for. And it's not typically indicative of a future starting or a future big star wide receiver in the NFL. Also wanted to highlight this. It is my wife and I's 5-year anniversary of when we started dating. When we started officially dating. Wedding anniversary is in October, but yeah, happy anniversary to you, babe. Really appreciate all of the support. And yes, she is letting me stream on our anniversary. She's pregnant and can't drink, so we really can't go out and do much, guys. So here I am.
Stream.
Yeah, here I am getting to stream and talk about Adonai Mitchell with some Colts fans here. You'll love to see it. But Drake, I mean, let's talk about his fit with the Colts. If we look at Adonai Mitchell, and obviously we've talked about what he's good at, what he still needs to work on. To me, it seems like Mitchell would come in and you know how we talked about how it would be an open competition between Brian Thomas Jr. and Alec Pierce for that starting Z role. To me, Adonai Mitchell, there really isn't there wouldn't really be a competition there. I think Mitchell comes in as the wide receiver. If you want to put a label on it, wide receiver 4, sure. To me, I like to more go as like backup X wide receiver, which would be like Ashton Doolin behind Michael Pittman. I think he would start out as the backup Z behind Alec Pierce, and he'd really have to go out there and prove that he is better than Alec Pierce for him to even get a look there. So in my opinion, I think he would start out he would start out as a backup. Obviously you can bring him in to be that deep threat. He could continue to work on his route running, but I don't think he's necessarily that starter level wide receiver that you would be looking at if you're picking him in the first round. Before you get your answer, CFO has something to say, Drake. So Patrick Rye coming in here hot, legend, with another $5 super chat, getting Drake drunk as usual. And Patrick says, just cut to it. Xavier Worthy, Troy Franklin, Brian Thomas Jr., and A.D. Mitchell are on the board. Who are you taking, and who are the Colts taking? I'm taking Brian Thomas Jr. The Colts, probably between Brian Thomas Jr. and Xavier Worthy. As far as who they would pick, I would say probably leaning Mitchell. And as Patrick says, I'm guessing Andrew drives the Bowers train through the question as a loophole. I mean, hey, if Brock Bowers is on the board, then it's Brock Bowers, Patrick. But you didn't.
He was being nice and just naming your super chat options.
Listen. If Brock Bowers is on the board, I mean, I'm Kool-Aid Manning through the wall with Brock Bowers train. Oh, yeah. That's for damn sure. To me, I think it's Brian Thomas Jr., and I think the Colts would take Brian Thomas Jr. if it's there at 15. Drake, what do you think?
I mean, it's really intriguing to think about all those options, especially Troy Franklin. Love the fact that you threw that in there. A lot of people aren't talking about Troy Franklin. I believe it was Reggie Wayne and JBC went to his pro day.
I think it was just Reggie Wayne. Okay, I don't know about Jim Bob Cooter.
That's still telling. That's still telling that Reggie Wayne went alone. Look, I think Brian Thomas Jr. offers the most. I think that he's just the most complete player and really fits ultimately at the highest point what they're trying to do. I would take him, and I think that the Colts would take him, but I also think they're stupid high on Xavier Worthy. I think they love Xavier Worthy too.
Yeah, so I would definitely agree there. Patrick, thank you so much for the super chat, buddy. Really, really do appreciate it. But Drake, say the Colts do take Adonai Mitchell in the draft. What's the fit like? What do you think his role would be like there with the Indianapolis Colts? Is it kind of like what I said? Is that backup Z or a backup X as he tries to work into the lineup? Or do you think he gets a lot of playing time right away?
I don't think it's similar to Josh Downs' situation where he just like upended Isaiah McKenzie like we didn't think was going to happen. I think that He's going to sit at the wide receiver 4 position. He's going to be behind Pittman. He's going to be behind Downs and Pierce, namely Pierce, because I think that, like you said, Doolin's going to be kind of Pittman's backup, and then I think he would be Pierce's. But he would be fighting more, I think, Alec Pierce for the wide receiver 3 spot. I just think that there's a couple things that would make the Colts say, okay, you need to show us that these aren't areas of concern, and that, you can beat the guy that we picked in the second round. You can beat Alec Pierce. They're going to give Alec Pierce his due. They're going to try to let him make sure that he's got an opportunity to show out in year 3. Okay. But I just think he's wide receiver 4. And I think that Ashton Doolin, if he's healthy, that's really the guy he needs to look out for. Just because he's a rookie, do I think he's got the talent to potentially be a wide receiver 3 sooner rather than later? Yes. But I don't think the Colts really start looking into that until like week 5, 6, maybe 7.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think Pierce would have to really struggle for that to start to become a conversation. And not only would Pierce have to struggle, I think Mitchell would have to really be proving himself in practice, especially creating that connection with Anthony Richardson as well. But Drake, it's prediction time. We did it with Xavier Worthy. You said, if the Colts trade back into the early 20s, that Xavier Worthy is probably the pick. They stay at 15 and are looking on the offensive side of the ball. Brian Thomas Jr. is probably the pick. But what about Adonai Mitchell here? Has all the athletic ability in the world. The production definitely isn't there. But when he has been involved, he's taken over games. So what do you think? Do the Colts end up drafting Adonai Mitchell in this draft class? Why or why not?
I don't think they do. I think that they're going to stay at 15. And I just don't think he's worth a 15th pick. I think that if they're sitting there and they've got let's just hypothetically say Thomas is gone, Bowers is gone, Mitchell's gone, everybody they want is gone. They're not going to select. I think that they're going to trade back. Or if it's the other way around, like we talked about earlier today, if everybody they want is available, they're going to get those picks. I think that he's more of a late round guy. And I also will go out on a limb and say that I think
now, when you say late round guy, do you mean late first round, or
yes.
Are you talking? Okay, you're talking day 3.
No. AD Mitchell's a late first rounder. I don't think he's a 15th overall pick. I also think that if they trade back, they're going to pick Xavier Worthy if he's available. I just think that he fits more of what they're trying to do. I also think he's got more of a consistent work history. He's done it right out of the gate, and I think that the Colts will look into the effort stuff. I really do. I think they're going to look into that at least a little bit because it was concerning enough to put on his draft profile twice. So I just think that when you look at what the Colts are trying to do, even though me and Andrew disagreed, I guess, on that Xavier Worthy and AD Mitchell might be, I think he might be a little bit more well-rounded day 1. I think the ultimate potential, I just think that Xavier Worthy has a better potential, and I think the Colts would take him over AD Mitchell.
I think Xavier Worthy fits better in this Colts offense. I really do. For what the Colts are looking to add to this wide receiver room, you already have the guy that wins over the middle, the guy that wins underneath your possession, number 1 wide receiver in Michael Pittman Jr., the guy that's going to eat up most of the targets. You have your quick win guy in the slot like Josh Downs. We talked about that he was going to be the quick win wide receiver in Shane Steichen's offense. That proved to be true. Yep. The other wide receiver is your deep threat. Alec Pierce is that deep threat now, but you're looking for that other deep threat, and when you have, we say that 4.22 speed doesn't translate to the field. For Xavier Worthy, it does. I mean, when you turn on the Xavier Worthy's film, cornerbacks are giving him 15 yards of space just to start out because they're so worried about that speed. And when you try to press Xavier Worthy, if he can get out of that press, you're not catching him, and that's the same with Brian Thomas Jr. When you watch the film of Brian Thomas Jr., as soon as he gets a step on a guy, I mean, good luck. You're not catching him again. And even if guys do get off separation or give Brian Thomas Jr. 10 yards of separation, he closes very quickly with those long strides and can get past you very, very quickly as well. With Mitchell, again, that he is a deep threat. I will say that. But that ability to separate and the ability to take the top off the defense at a consistent rate just doesn't show up on film. And for me, that puts Mitchell behind both Thomas Jr. and Xavier Worthy, in my opinion. I think if the Colts don't take a wide receiver in the first round, say they go or a pass catcher, if they don't take Brock Bowers either, say instead they opt for Quinyon Mitchell, Terrion Arnold, Cooper DeJean, one of those guys, and at 46, if Xavier Worthy isn't there, Troy Franklin isn't there. Maybe if Troy Franklin is there, could be a toss-up between Franklin and Mitchell. That's when I could see the Colts potentially considering Mitchell, but not in the first round, guys. I think that some teams might like Mitchell better than the Colts and take him at the back end of the first round.
Could be a scheme fit.
It really could be,
yeah.
or a team that desperately needs a wide receiver, like a Buffalo, or Kansas City. Kansas City may have lost their top wide receiver this weekend in Rashee Rice. We'll have to see about how that mess kind of plays out. But to me, for the fit with the Colts, Mitchell's a second round guy, not a guy that you would take at the back end of the first, because I think Thomas and Worthy are better fits with the Colts and can have a bigger impact with the Colts than Adonai Mitchell can. So that's kind of where I stand. I think Mitchell, again, if he hits and he hits his ceiling, I think he has star potential. My comp for Adonai Mitchell is George Pickens. I think that he can have that type of impact.
It's a good comp.
However, it's, can he hit that ceiling? Can he get to that point? And that's something that I think it's going to depend on the situation he goes into and how much work and effort he does put into perfecting his craft. I think that's really going to determine how Adonai Mitchell ends up succeeding at the next level.
Yeah, and look, two things real quick. George Pickens is not a bad comp, and by not a bad comp, I don't mean that it's a great job from Andrew at matching AD Mitchell to an NFL football player. I mean, George Pickens is a hell of a football player. Okay, there's just been a couple times where you're like, is the effort there? But overall, George Pickens is fantastic. He's a great receiver, especially when he really wants to put it on. He can put it on. But I just want to throw out, and I'm going to rapid fire this 1 through 14, Xavier Worthy's by game catch numbers: 7, 5, 4, 3, 7, 8, 6, 4, 5, 10, 4, 4, 6, 2. My point is 2 of his 14 games were 4 or fewer catches. All that Xavier Worthy has done since he started at Texas, when he was a teenager, by the way, is just produce game after game after game. Well, you have a couple that are down. Of course, Michael Pittman Jr. had a couple down games, but my point is, more often than not, you're not questioning consistency. You don't question it with Worthy. You do question it with Mitchell. And I think above all, kind of like Andrew said, it's the consistency. They want a guy who they really think is going to show up as that explosive option week in and week out. And even if they do draft a guy like Worthy and he starts behind Pierce initially, I really do think that the consistency is going to overtake that at some point. So that's why we don't think that Mitchell is going to be that 15th pick. But hey, if they trade back till the later parts of the first round, or maybe even early second somehow, and they still don't have that pass catcher, maybe AD Mitchell's in their range.
So is Mitchell a sneaky draft target for the Indianapolis Colts? Potentially, just not in the first round. So we'll have to kind of see how everything plays out. But if I had to place my bet on it today, I don't think Mitchell ends up being an Indianapolis Colt. But Drake, let's talk about the latest Colts news. And obviously, really the only thing we are going to talk about in this section today is about Vontae Davis, and Vontae Davis, an exceptional Colt. We if you haven't done so, please go watch the Pat McAfee show from today, because Pat McAfee and Darius Butler was on the show as well. Both were teammates of Vontae Davis there in Indianapolis, and they really. It was tough to watch, honestly. Their reaction to hearing the news, talking about Vontae Davis. Vontae Davis had a really big impact on the team. He was a great guy in the locker room. The Colts, his teammates absolutely loved him. He was a real joy as a teammate. And you could tell from what Pat McAfee said, from what Darius Butler said, and then other guys that have reached out and shared on social media. Kenny Moore II did a post on Vontae Davis, T.Y. Hilton, Reggie Wayne. All of those guys talked about the impact that Vontae Davis had on their lives, just how great of a teammate he was. And really, only 35 years old. Drake, you wrote about it earlier today, but it's very heartbreaking. And while I didn't know too much about Vontae Davis's personal life, for me, one of my biggest memories of Vontae Davis was that 2014 season when he absolutely dominated. And really, that is maybe one of the only times in my lifetime since I've been following the Indianapolis Colts that the Colts had a lockdown, undisputed cornerback one. Lockdown corner, one of the best cornerbacks in the NFL was during that 2014 season when Vontae Davis, no matter what wide receiver he was matched up on, he locked them down. Didn't allow a single touchdown all season. I think he only gave up 400 yards total, 0 touchdowns, and like a quarterback rating in the 40s. So a dominant season from Vontae Davis, and obviously just definitely gone way too soon.
Yeah. You look, his first 3 seasons, 2009 to 2011, he was with the Miami Dolphins. Then, of course, the Colts traded him, I think, the Dolphins traded him for a second round pick to the Indianapolis Colts. And all he did was go out and ball, man. I mean, 2014, 2015, I highlight these years because the man was a Pro Bowler both seasons, only 2 seasons of his career with the Colts. He had 8 interceptions total. He had 34 passes defensed. This dude was a blanket. I mean, he was the best corner I've seen in recent memory in a Colts uniform. And I mean, PFF had him as one of the highest graded Colts players of the past decade. All right. I mean,
yeah, I think as Kevin says, Vontae is still has the greatest PFF corner of all time, or the greatest season of all time potentially. So, yeah, you're right there, Drake. It was just incredible what Vontae Davis was able to do that season.
And ultimately, I know that he'll be remembered just because it's recency bias for leaving the Buffalo Bills at halftime. But Vontae Davis's impact with the Indianapolis Colts, at least that's what we can cover here. It can't be stressed enough that this dude was a dog. He was a soft-spoken voice in the locker room. He was great to interview and had a hilarious soundbite where he thought Peyton Manning was Tom Brady after. I still think it's so funny. But I remember back when in 2014, before I started all this awesome stuff with Andrew the legendary Moore himself.
No, stop it.
I was a bar back at Kilroy's, and this dude, Vontae Davis, comes in for some chicken fingers. We didn't have chicken fingers. I was like, look, I know this might be weird, but we don't have chicken fingers. And all he says was, oh, man, that's all right. Plenty of places have chicken fingers. He goes, but you know what? I'll order a burger. Just at the bar, slow Tuesday night by himself. He just kind of waltzes in. And they used to do shows with like guys like Anthony Costanzo, Jarrell Freeman back in the day. Look, man, Vontae Davis was a great guy. And this sucks. His brother Vernon, I feel for him. I feel for the whole Davis family, and it's a loss for Colts Nation. So just remember the good times, and remember that if anybody's ever looking for a lockdown corner that Indianapolis could get, look back at the Vontae Davis tape, because that dude was literally a padlock. No one could even get off that island, man.
That's an awesome story, and that thanks for sharing, because I didn't even know that you had that story with
oh yeah, Davis, a lot of Colts players around Broad Ripple at that time.
But hey, rest in peace to number 21. Definitely one of the best cornerbacks in Indianapolis Colts franchise history. I think undisputed the best, has the best season of any cornerback in NFL history, and he's going to be very missed. So again, thoughts and prayers to the Davis family as they go through this tough time, and all the members of the Indianapolis Colts franchise that are going through a tough time with the passing of Vontae Davis. But hey, you can remember his legendary voice, his soft-spoken voice, as Drake said, and an all-around fantastic human being, Vontae Davis, gone way too soon. So that's our show for tonight, guys. Really appreciate everybody tuning in, talking about Adonai Mitchell, sharing some memories about Vontae Davis, and making sure those good memories don't disappear, but talking about Adonai Mitchell, another prospect who could potentially be coming to the Colts in this NFL draft. So we really appreciate everybody talking, join in the chat, and continuing to to really discuss what's going to happen with the Indianapolis Colts here at the end of the month. Drake, of course, we got to give a shout out to our great fans here, all of our super chats, Yim, Logan Schmidt, Patrick Rye, my beautiful wife Danielle. Thank you guys all so much for the super chats, and everybody else again that joined the chat to talk Colts football with us this evening. If you haven't done so, please go follow us on all of our socials, like Horseshoe Huddle on Facebook, follow at Colts on FN on X, and subscribe to the Horseshoe Huddle YouTube channel. Hit that bell so you know when Drake and I go live every Monday and Thursday night, or for the special breaking news episodes, because you're not going to want to miss those. And if you can't catch us live or on YouTube, wherever you listen to podcasts, we're on there as well. So make sure to subscribe, give us a 5-star review so we can reach other Colts fans just like you. And also, guys, 1 week until the Indy Draft Guide drops. Make sure to pre-order yours today with the code DRAFTMISS, and the link in our description gets you $1 off. So make sure to go pre-order yours today so you get it as soon as it drops. Drake, I know you've got some pieces out there. Oh my gosh, as Patrick coming in here with a $20 super chat. Go order some anniversary DoorDash for Danielle.
Come on,
Patrick,
man.
you're an absolute legend, brother. You're an absolute legend. So I really appreciate it, man. I know Danny appreciates the hell out of it too, because she's eating for two right now. Because hey, listen, guys, our baby boy, he's pretty big right now. He's going to be a unit. Comes out the womb. I'm getting him into those offensive line camps.
Be a unit.
We're getting this kid a full scholarship to Notre Dame, the next great offensive lineman at Notre Dame, and that's just the plan, guys.
You're gonna make me cry, dude.
But Patrick, thank you so much, buddy. Danielle and I appreciate it greatly. Now, Drake, what do you got on horseshoehuddle.com that the people can go check out?
So I did a little breaking news piece. I did a couple breaking news pieces, but also did one an interesting breakdown from Christopher Knox at Bleacher Report. I did one on Kareem Jackson and how the Colts hosted him. The one on Christopher Knox was that he projected the Colts would make a huge draft for a star receiver, and then the one that was most recent is the unfortunate passing of Vontae Davis. So just go check all those out and all of the other amazing writers at our website.
Absolutely. Make sure you check that out. Guys, I haven't posted anything in a little bit. I've been a little bit busy, preparing for a baby to come. But if you haven't done so, please go read my piece on Shane Steichen's comments about Anthony Richardson. He really dove into his excitement about Richardson and what he saw from Richardson in that first year. But guys, I've got some stuff cooking. Been working on the draft guide, so that's coming out soon. I'm going to have a feature out on the man himself, Kent Lee Platt, the founder and creator of the RAS system. So that's going to be coming out on the site, and we'll see if I'm able to get it finished and wrapped up. But I've got my second mock draft working itself out, so it might come at the end of this week, might be early next week, but that second mock draft is coming. And guys, there's potentially a change at number 15. Brock Bowers' train might be taking a hit. We'll have to see. But make sure you check that out. And as Drake said, all the other fantastic writings on horseshoehuddle.com. You can follow Drake at DWalsterDrake. You can follow me at Andrew Moore NFL. And we'll be back Thursday night to break down another prospect that the Colts may take at number 15, going to the defensive side of the ball this time. So who could it be? Quinyon Mitchell, Terrion Arnold, Cooper DeJean, somebody else? Going to have to wait and see. So tune in Thursday night, Colts fans. Hope everyone had a fantastic Easter weekend, and we'll be seeing you later in the week.